If you want to know how to manage life when disaster strikes in your personal or professional life, you have to tune into this episode. Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I welcome all new listeners and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know how to manage life when disaster strikes in your personal or professional life, you have to tune into this episode. Before I go on to this podcast, what is new in life? For those of you who know, follow me on social media, know me personally. It is an absolute chaos festival. In my life, and I'm going to share a ton of stuff behind the scenes, what's going on inside my business, my personal life, my online business, and everything that's happening all in 1 week or a compilation of 2 weeks. And I'm here to share what is happening and how that impacts your life and how you can learn the lessons that it has taken me a lot of time to figure out. So that you don't also have to struggle through some of this stuff too. So, or you're better prepared. That's what it comes down to. So, let's chat. So, my kids are doing fantastic. Zach is starting to push back at me just a little bit, gives me a little attitude here and there, but he's a bundle of joy, and he brings me so much happiness every day. He's awesome. Alex and Jacob are doing fantastic. Alex is crushing her gymnastics and getting spicier than ever, giving me the she's too cool for dad faces. And Jacob is a personality. He's awesome to watch every single day. And my wife is just purely an amazing human, right there beside me and supporting me through a bunch of stuff that's happening right now. So I'll tell you more about that. But all right, let's go on. Let's talk about this. So why am I doing this podcast? I'm doing this podcast in where are we at? March in 2023. And whenever you're listening back to this, I'm recording this right after CSM, which was hosted here in San Diego. It's my backyard. I'm out of here in San Diego in Chula Vista. And a lot of things happened over the last week, and I'll say it now. If anybody knows me, I love I love seeing the positive in things, and a lot of things happened recently, and I think it's for the greater good. I can't see it all right now, but I want to share how a couple different stories on my professional development, not just in the last 2 weeks, but what has led up to things like this, and I'll tell some personal stories as well on um, how how I manage and stress, how I cope with very stressful situations, both in the clinic, on the field, and in life. And a couple things have kind of set me up for this, and I'll share that as well. So what happened? Here we go. About a week ago, we had somebody steal some things from me. We had an intruder, and they stole a couple things. And more than anything else, for me, it's uh, it's a personal thing. I grew up in a very rough neighborhood and real tough upbringing, and there's bars on the window and people stealing stuff, and just not a good place where you wanna be. And I remember growing up, and a lot of people would steal. It's just a normal thing. You left your garage door open, they stole it. You left anything outside, they stole it. And I had people break into my house and take my personal stuff, and that always hurt me the most because I was like, man, that's my stuff. Like, what do you want with it? What are you gonna do with it? There's no value to some of these things. And so somebody took some things from me. They broke into my space, and that made it really really tough for me to kind of stomach. So you wipe that off, and then a couple of days later, my clinic. I have three clinics. One is in San Diego near downtown, and that clinic flooded on Saturday morning. And I got a phone call around 7:30, 8 a.m. saying, "Hey, we think it's going to start flooding. Let's start planning for this." And I was like, "Oh, we've done this before." They're like, "Oh, this is different," but I was like, "It's not even raining that hard." And it turns out that a city pump failed, and it just backflowed into our business so much that, I mean, we were swimming. Like, it was, just to get into the business was like mid-thigh deep of water. So for context, however tall you are, I'm 5'9.5", and my thighs were in water. And so I walk in the clinic and I see everything is just flooded. And at this point, yeah, at some point in life, you're like, you see so much chaos, you're like, where do I start? So I wasn't ready for this. When people said, hey, it's flooding down here, I didn't realize the level. And it wasn't because I thought it was like, oh, it's not raining. And when I saw, I was like, clearly there's something different about this thing. And what was going through my mind was pretty crazy. And, just trying to figure out and navigate, where do I start? What's the next course of action? Do I try and get the water out? Where am I going to pump it out to? What do I salvage? What's not going to make it? What do I give up on? And my poor wife is right there with me. She's on the phone, just because I couldn't bring my kids in. I didn't want them near, like, anything like this. And my youngest Jacob doesn't know how to swim, so I was literally concerned. And actually, it was deep enough that it would be a deep a concern. So we navigate that. We have to shut down business for a couple days, and that's hard, as a business owner. As a physical therapist, you have ups and downs in your life, right? You have partners, you have finances, you have your fitness level, you have your confidence, you have all these things, right? And when things are outside your control and it impacts your ability to go to work, the thing that brings you joy, like the thing that you are so proud to do every day, and when that's negatively impacted by something that's out of your control, it's frustrating. That to me is frustrating. I enjoy business. I enjoy helping people. I love helping PTs literally become the best, like, possible clinician. But I also like helping the community, be pain free and live a life that they didn't even know was possible. And when my business was impacted, I had to start forecasting, like, how is this going to impact what we're doing? And I mean, I have jobs to have people's bills to pay as well. So I had to make some decisions, which were tough for me. So I had to cut down business Monday and Tuesday. And all I can think of is, like, all right, what's next? What's going to happen to me next? I'm like, I know something's happening, right? And I don't know what that is, but I'll share a story in 2011 that really impacted me. And I promise this all has to do with your professional career. I promise. And in 2011 was probably the biggest, hardest year I've ever had. If you talk to anybody who does counseling, sports psych, any form of psychological background, or sorry, like professional services, and this is for the clinicians out there who are, maybe they're getting married, they're going to buy a home, they're going to have their first kid, they're going to have their 10th kid, whatever's happening. Anytime that you have like three huge, there's certain um, life circumstances that qualify as like a large lifetime event. So let me tell you. So anytime that you are going to get married, that's a huge lifetime event, right? Like, you hope to do that one time in your life, right? And that's a pretty good event. It's very stressful. It's for a good thing, but we make it stressful. So marriage is one. Divorce is another. Buying a home is another. Getting a new dog is another. Getting your first child is another. And having your first child, but also losing either somebody close or a relative or somebody in your family. So there's huge milestones. There's more to that list. I didn't realize this until afterwards. And I had in 2011, I met my wife, like Stephanie, but at the time she was my girlfriend, right? And I met her then, and I told her, hey, I got a job offer. I went to the Limerick Training Center in Chula Vista, and I was living in Ohio, the Ohio State University, and we met. And so within a month, I get a phone call from the director of the United States Living Committee, and they said, hey, we're looking to hire a first physical therapist. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh, I'm not going to say no to that. So I make the call. Steph and I work through the whole situation. Within a month, I'm out. So I meet her, and then I take off the next month. And so I move. So I have a new job, which is a milestone, and a move, like a relocation, is one. So I got a new job in January of 2011. I relocated to that job I think 5 months later, um, it's 2011. Yes. Okay. So 5 months later, I lose my grandma on my dad's side. And that was huge, right? Like I have this high pressure job, and I am out here without my wife, and I lose my grandma, and she was a huge component. This is not the person who raised me. This is my dad's mom. My mom's mom is who raised me, and I ended up losing her, and that was huge to the family. And so I was like, okay, there's my third thing in the year. Like, what else can go wrong? Well, the next month I proposed to my wife in July, and I was like, it's the next kind of journey for me. It's like rebirth of something new. There was death, and now it's rebirth of like my life. So now I have four life instances. And then a couple months later, my grandfather dies. My dad's mom's husband. And so there was just this, there was like, I, there was five already, was in the end of the year, and he was in San Diego as well, so it was really rough. And here's the kicker. I don't say this too often. I don't bring up a lot of my personal life, but I'm getting more comfortable in this world. But 2 months later, in November 2011, my mom dies. My mom was a big part of my life, and I was raised by my grandma, and my mom was here and there and present. But I lose my mom, and that was a huge one for me. So you have six life instances that were just massive. And as a clinician, you're also trying to uh, you're trying to show your athletes and your patients that you're present, right? That you're here to help them, and that's what your job is, right? You signed up for it. And so when you have six life instances, it's tough in a year. And I'll tell you what, the fun fact about me, I never missed a day at work um, in that year. And I think one of the hardest parts that people don't understand is I had to plan my mom's funeral all at the same time. And I've never done that before. I've never planned a single a funeral like this. And so it was super stressful. And my point of all this is not to just bring up stories, but tell you what I learned from that, because this is what you can take away. I've been a hustler my whole life. I've pushed past barriers. As you guys know, I was illiterate going into college, and rough upbringing. And there's certain milestones in life you have to conquer. You have another notch on your belt that you have to hustle towards. And this was one. I didn't realize how hard this could be, and I just pushed through. I wasn't much of a communicator. I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have a newsletter. I didn't have a business, and I kept it all to myself, and that was probably one of the hardest things I had to do. And I didn't let anybody in. And my wife was the only one who knew how hard this was. And that was a poor job on my part, because I held it in for so much. I had so much remorse. I had so much challenges. And as a physical therapist, no one really talks about this, right? As a clinician, most of you listening to this, you're top dogs. You're good at the craft. You've been through the hustle. You've done good things in your life, and you're enjoying life now, and you want to be the best version of yourself, and that's why you're trying to become that incredible sports PT. And I love that, and that's why I love hanging out with you guys. I love doing this podcast for you guys, because I know you're right there with me. You've been through it, right? Like you're part of it, and you want to aspire to be more. And so looking back and going through all this stuff, I've realized you do so much work as a clinician, and you have to realize that at some point the hustle has to pause or slow down, and it becomes about how do you do things more efficiently. And now I had this event on Saturday, the flood and somebody stealing stuff from me, and I had a couple of life instances that were rough over the last 2 weeks. And here I am doing a podcast, and I think that speaking about it and letting other people know and how you benefit and give and sharing that is so powerful, because there's other people who are like that. And when you listen to this, you're like, yeah, I've been through some of that stuff. But here's the thing, I can tell you that there's a couple things I'm gonna have you go away with, a couple life lessons. But so that was 2011, and that really set me up for like what not to do. One, to build tolerance or a callus for something that of that magnitude. But the great part is the following year, in 2012, I marry the woman of my dreams, my wife Stephanie, and we get a dog and a house, right? So rebirth of three new things, right? Like let's go. And so as I went through this last thing, I titled this podcast "When Disaster Strikes," because it's all relative. Each one of your lives are going to be different, but just know, as I've navigated a ton in my life and been through a lot of things, I've hired a lot of people, I've mentored a lot of people. We now have 3 locations within our cash-based wellness clinic. And if you guys are listening to this, and on March 3rd, we have our grand opening, so I'd love to see you there. If you're listening to this back, no worries, we'll catch the next one. But yeah, no. So what I want to be able to share is my takeaways, and knowing that you're going to have a ton of stuff happen to you in your life. Like, it's just the nature of the beast, right? It's are you ready for it or not? And then do you have the coping mechanisms and structure and mental clarity to handle it as best as possible? And so 2011 was the hardest year for me to go through so much within a year, and 2012 gave me rebirth. And this year in 2000, where we at 23 now, there's just a lot of moving parts. We're opening a new clinic. We have one that's flooding. We had people steal from me all in the same week. We're hiring, we're onboarding. We have all these moving pieces, and you might feel that like this as a clinician, where you go to PT school and you had no cares in the world besides an exam, right? Or some of you had kids in PT school, right? You had exams plus kids. So here's what I can tell you, and what's going to hit you next as a clinician, wherever you are, right? There's phases of clinicians, and I know because I mentor them. I've mentored them throughout the last decade, so I see what targets you're going to hit. So for some of you, you graduate PT school, you don't have a worry in the world, get your grades, get it done, pass the exam, right? That's the stressful thing, pass the exam, get your first job. Number two, you have a partner and you need to move and relocate to the new job. That's number three. Number four is you now have like income, and now you have to like balance out like, wait, needs and wants. What do I need? And then you have to forecast, like, do I want a home? Is that my vision? And all these other things. So you have all these stressors, and those stressors, if you don't know what's about to hit you, seem very stressful. But if you know, oh my goodness, it's like, well, it's not that bad. And it's not that you have to go through it in life to have thicker skin. I don't think it's the thing. I think you have to know what lies ahead, so you can, pivot left or right and make sure that your path it goes unchanged, and you can cope, manage it, and move on quicker. That's the barrier. It's people who can take that and run faster than the next. Because I can tell you, by the time we hit this, covered this flood, I mean, I spent 15 hours for 4 days straight just clearing that thing out. And I can tell you, the people who come on, move on faster, and you can still cope, allow you to not skip a beat and move on. So if you're PT and you moved on, you had your first job, maybe your third, fourth, fifth job, wherever you are, you had your partner, you consider getting married, you add your marriage, so you have that going on, and then you add an animal, a dog, a kid, whatever it is, and then you start looking at relocating to a bigger house, and then in professional life, rightfully so, you're probably going to start to improve on whatever you're doing, and if you can adjust what happens professionally with what happens personally, and those routes, you're like, it's okay. Now you can say, hey, it's going to be rough waters ahead, just FYI, and people, they have an easier time navigating that. And so as you navigate professional career development, I'll tell you what, you're probably going to get more hours. You're going to find yourself doing more research. You're going to start doing weekend activities, night activities, presentations, community outreach, in a lot of different things. So if you know that's about to hit, and you're going to have a kid, and you're going to have your second kid or third kid, or buy your first home, or all these other things, just know you're adding layers at a very interesting time, and you don't want to add more than 2 to 3 in a same given year. I'm telling you, pick your battles, because if you know that, then like, man, maybe this is a little bit rough. And if you want to, hustle again, that's okay. I'd say over the last 5 days, I had a hustle again, plus managing opening a new clinic. It was tough. There's a lot of things in there, but it's fine. We can manage that, cope. I'm here sharing this podcast, and on to the next. And it's very critical for a lot of US sports PTs. I think that Yes, you're trying to get outcomes. Yes, you're trying to be the best version of yourself. But what I'm saying is, as you naturally do that, you become well known in your community. Your employer, your coworkers, your colleagues are going to vouch for you. You're going to be moving up professionally. I'm telling you, as that happens, adjust your personal life to make sure that you can manage that and do it successfully with an art. There's a science of managing a marriage and relationship, everything else, but there's an art to blending the two and you feeling satisfied and fulfilled at work because I know you love it. You're addicted to it like I am, but also being able to share that joy and experience of fulfillment with the people close to you. Now, if you're single, man, you're probably crushing it. You are in it's the best time to be selfish in life. When you're single, enjoy it. Do live your dreams, right? Just attack it. Do the residency, do all this stuff. Like whatever it is that you want to do, go full throttle because once you start balancing things out, it's going to be tougher. And now as I manage 3 clinics with a family, three kids, a dog, and all these other things, and mentoring physical therapists all over the country, there's a balance to that. And knowing what you can push and pull is very critical. So here's what I have. Here are my lessons. Number one, when any of these things happen, um, the first thing you can do, in walking into this clinic, the first thing I did was take a deep breath, man. Take a deep breath. And I had to figure out that deep breath provides a little bit of clarity. And here's what's going on in my brain anytime I do this. And fun fact, I do this anytime that I'm doing this is time I'm talking about disaster, but I'm also talking about emergency medicine. Anytime I'm on a field, I'm working BMX, I'm high trauma. This is my same triage list. Okay, number one, take a deep breath. Um, the best thing you can do here is decide how you want to handle the situation. You're going to use logic or emotion. Most of us, when we have stressful situations, we default to emotional, like, you know what, like, oh, high energy, oh my gosh, what happened? But or you can use logic. And anytime that you're working through something, I'm like, all right, is this emotion or logic? Am I angry after I've gone through all the scenarios and it's logical? Like, I still feel this way. Like, I feel good about that. But when I know, like, oh, I'm just being emotional, I just need to calm down. Right now, I am not using logic because logic would tell me it's fine. I can move out that, move the water out. I can do all this stuff. The furniture is not going to be that bad, blah, blah, blah. That's logic. I can do the numbers. I can figure that out. And the emotional side, it's never going to be better. It's going to ruin our whole life. Like that's a little tougher, right? So take a deep breath in, use emotion versus logic. And what that allows you truly to do is figure out what you can and can't control. I can't control whether that furniture is going to get fully damaged or not. What I can control is my kids and my family is safe. My employees are out of the way. They're safe. The building, what can I do about that? So the people, which are the most important, are safe. I'm like, all right, I can control that. Stay away. I'll manage all this stuff. And what I can't control is the potential damage that's going to happen. And that's okay. And when you can take that deep breath, figure out if you're going to use emotion versus logic, and you determine what you can control, believe me, making decisions is so much easier, especially in a situation like that. That's number one. Take that deep breath. Number two, what's the best and worst case scenario here? So when you're looking at it, you're like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about best case scenario. Best case scenario, I can get this out. We work tomorrow. Worst case scenario is everything falls down, collapses, and there's nothing left. Okay, somewhere in the middle is like where the answer is. So if I'm like, all right, I'm okay with if we can work tomorrow, it'd be great. Worst case scenario is it falls down, everything else. So I can plan for that and be mentally ready, but what's really going to happen is somewhere in the middle. It took us 4 days to get that out, and I thought it'd be three. It just didn't work out like that. But all I knew was I knew my red light and green light. Right, like I knew my bumpers. I'm like, all right, everything else in the middle I can deal with as long as the walls are still up. I have a place that helps me navigate. All right, here's worst case scenario, best case scenario. I'm using logic. What can I control? And I just narrowed down my focus and truly allows me to make the best decisions possible during that time. Number three, uh, once you figured out your best and worst case scenario, taking that deep breath, you're using logic, you're figuring out what you can and can control, you're narrowing down all your options. Here's what you have to do, and this is always the hardest part. You're figuring out your plan A, B, and C, right? You got to commit to a plan. You got to commit. If you don't commit, you're going to go back and forth, and that doesn't solve problems. So whether it's, you're trying to figure out if this new job is going to work for you, or should you take your CSCS or OCS, but it's going to, they have expenses on this side and that, you just got to commit to a plan. Whatever it is that you're doing, just do it. Like worst case scenario, you lost $1,000, $400, 22 hours of your life, whatever. Just commit to the damn thing, because if not, you're just going to be dwelling on it for a year or two, or this disaster happens, or life happens. You just got to commit to a plan. It's the biggest thing I can tell you. As I've mentored thousands of physical therapists, I can tell you, you love thinking about overthinking it just over time, and you take months and years, things that could take a shorter time. Just commit to the plan. And so as I navigated, the flood, I had to figure out what the plan was, and I just had to, commit to it, and then, make sure that I hit all the bases. And I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I just got to commit to a plan, figure out what works. As you've narrowed that down, you have to do that. So number one, take a deep breath. Number two, figure out your best and worst case scenario. Number three, commit to a plan. Now, the caveat to committing to a plan, number four, is to reevaluate this on a daily or weekly basis, whatever your timeline is for how long this is going to happen. So once I committed to a plan, I just got to reevaluate that plan every single day. All right, are we on track? Is this not happening? Why is that not happening? I still have the plan. I know what's ahead. You got to reevaluate on a regular basis. So whether you're making a plan of care for an athlete, or you have to, help with planning a funeral, you have to reevaluate. Is this the plan that we agreed upon? Are these expenses, or is this the thing that's happening in life? Is this, we've committed to buying a home? Does our, budget forecast for that? Cutting down on this. Are we on that plan? Reevaluating on a daily or weekly basis, versus trying to figure it out at the end of the month and when it's too late. That just doesn't work. So when you're having financial, personal, professional challenges, I'm telling you, you do this checklist. This will help you tremendously as you navigate whatever you perceive as disaster. So those are my four things. Take that deep breath in, figure out, if you're doing, use logic versus emotion. What's your best and worst case scenario? Commit to a plan and reevaluate that daily. Here are my personal takeaways. The way I manage things like this in my life, it's like imagine working emergency medicine or on the field coverage. Yes, it's stressful, but the difference is it's your life now, and you're managing challenges and disasters as you go on. It's real. But when you're managing for patients, it's not as big, right? Or you don't have to think about it that big. But you have emotional connection to the problem now, because it's your personal life. But if you can stay calm under pressure within, emergency medicine, there's no difference. Remove the emotional attachment. The main difference is why you can do so well in the clinic, on the field, and in the weight room is because you don't have an emotional attachment to it. But when it hits your home, that's when things hit hard. Remove the emotional attachment and still use logic. Why? Because your outcomes are going to be better. Your mental clarity is going to be better. You'll make better decisions. Are you taking them on a spine board? Are you pushing this ACL a little too hard? Those are all easier decisions. Why? Because you have time. You can figure it out. You can navigate it, and you've thought about those options. But what happens in life, your whole brain and mental clarity just shuts down. You like forget how that feels. And so all I'm saying is the mental clarity and the logic you use in the clinic should also be used in your personal life. Remove the emotional component and stick to your logic. It's the thing that will make the biggest difference in your life. So that's number one. Number two is, be grateful for what you have. Like if you have a problem because, your clinical director is now asking you to do more because they want to groom you to the next position or whatever it is, be grateful for that. You're like, shit, that's a better problem than most people have. They can't even like get to that position. Enjoy that process. Like you asked for it. Don't say it, or you're like, oh, this residency is so hard, plus all this life. Enjoy the ride. There's tons of people who are applying for residency who can't get it. Well, oh man, I'm buying my first home and it's so stressful money wise. Most people can't afford their first home by your age. My point is just be grateful for the problems you have because you created them. Truly. That's why I'm like, anytime we have challenges with mentorships and this programs and all this stuff, I'm like, it's okay because I asked for it. So I'm grateful that people are asking me, they're emailing, they're like, hey, Chris, I have this challenge. I'm grateful for that, man, because you have a privilege you have education, you have something that you can offer people and provide a service to. And you have to be grateful for that. Number two, community is king. You can't do this by yourself. I used to do this, try to do things by myself just because of my upbringing and everything else you guys might know. But now I'm like, no, I'm not doing this by myself. That's why I'm building this community. So I can have people like myself, continue to push you guys so that you're the best version of yourself. And community is king. I tried to get whoever I could to rally and help with the flood. My wife and everybody else just, venting and talking about it and challenging the frustration and being able to cope as you go. That's where you move a whole lot faster, and you need that community, whoever that is for you. If you're doing it by yourself, I'm telling you, you're making this harder on yourself. Number three, put your head down and go. Kind of like PT school, just put your head down and go. It's not that hard. Just fucking do it. Come on. And if you have the mental clarity, you committed to a plan, gosh, it just put your head on and go. Sometimes you just have to do it. And I am so far out of the storm of the flood. And yeah, I mean, we just put our head down and go, and we're on the other side. There's a little bit of sunshine literally today. And yeah, that's it's always hard to be in it. But if you can keep some of these things at the top of your mind, it makes it so much easier and so much faster. And the last thing that I have for you is everything will be all right. You'll be all right. You have people first. There's a saying that we have in our business: people first and patient second. And we truly believe that. It's a motto that I live by, and my whole staff and team lives by. You treat the human first, and if as long as the people you have people around you, your parents, your mom, your dad, your siblings, your child, your dog, whatever it is that you have, community is king, and everything's gonna be all right. And those people, those people who surrounding you, they're going to support you, and everything will be all right. In the moment, it seems very tough. If the walls collapse, you'll be all right. Still, it's okay. You have people around you. You've got your professional development, your career. You can still move on. You're going to be all right. It's the thing that I can tell you after going through numerous things, and there's just a short list of two of the biggest challenges that come to mind. 2011 was a big one with six things that were hard for me in that life in that year. And we're still here. We're still standing. We built a community of sports PTs all over the country, now growing into the world. And all of you will approach and hit something that hits you just like this. And at some point, send me a message and tell me, yeah, everything's all right, man. It will be all right. And for those of you who've been listening to my podcast, last week I talked about losing your job to the recession. Funny enough, oddly enough, that day, I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram, send me a direct message, and said, "Hey, I really appreciated your podcast and your newsletter because I just lost my job." And having that insight made me calm down because I knew it's okay because I'm passionate about what I do. You'll be able to find another place to do that same thing. And that's truly what it comes down to is like your passion. Stay passionate for what you do and never lose sight of that. And if you have the people in your life, you're unstoppable. So don't try and do this by yourself. You're a sports PT, crush it. Continue doing what you're doing. For those of you who are interested and have asked, yes, I am still doing my accelerator course. We're looking at venues right now, depending on how many people live versus virtual. We have a ton of people doing virtual, and I'd love to have you on there. If you guys are interested, I'm hosting a 2-day CEU course. It's a mentorship program on acute injury management. and giving you that confidence and the skill set to manage, fresh ankle sprains, anything in the early healing phases, anywhere from 0 to 21 days, which you typically don't get in an orthopedic setting, whether you're cash-based or insurance-based, a hospital organization. I can help you fill that gap, and I'm going to work through strategies and techniques to be able to move those athletes into the clinic, either into rehab or back to sport, and that's where you have to make critical decisions and commit to a plan. So just like emergency medicine, with acute injury management, you got to set a plan very quickly, set them up for success, and commit to it, and just go and put your head down and just party. So that is happening March 18th and 19th in 2023, both in San Diego and virtual. So I'd love to have you guys on. That is on my website, drchrisgarcia.com/accelerator. For those of you who are attending, I'm excited to see you. Those who are joining me for my Strength Conditioning Summit in June, I will see you then. But nonetheless, I hope your lives are amazing. And don't worry, it'll be all right. Just keep pushing through. Put your head down and go. Be grateful, and community is king. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I hope you guys are living your best life, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care. See you guys.